Welcome to Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap, the season of self-love series. I'm your host, Nyomi Banks, and in this empowering series, we delve into the transformative journey of self-love and explore the various facets of personal growth, mindfulness, and self-care. Each Tuesday, we'll bring you inspiring conversations with experts, real-life stories, and practical tips on how to nurture and embrace self-love in your own life. So get ready to embark on this incredible journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Oh, hey, welcome back to the season of self-love. And again, I am Nyomi Banks. And this episode is truly one that I'm going to be very honest that I am still practicing on how to do this to this very day. And the topic today that will be discussing is empowering boundaries, the key to self-love and saying no. And when I'm talking about setting healthy boundaries, man, some of those healthy boundaries have to do with relationships that you have with family and friends, and even the healthy boundaries that you have with yourself. Yes, I said it. With yourself. Many times we are so used to doing things like the old way, what we feel that we are comfortable with. And so we tend not to try to change it up. So we tend to want to stay in the same toxic environment. And get this, I'm not talking about of other people. I'm talking about the boundaries of the healthy relationship with yourself. Because the thing is, we have to get that together first to be able to recognize the other boundaries that we need to put on others. Oh yes, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. This is going to be a good one. Because some of the things that I have written down here, I had this conversation with my cousin earlier today. It was about a good 2.5 hour conversation. And we were talking about how I myself had actually kind of, I don't want to say set boundaries, but it kind of was, but also not allowing toxicity anymore in my life. Is that I'm no longer aligned with that behavior anymore. Like I was born in it. It's through my bloodline, but I don't have to subscribe to it anymore. In my life, I have always been accessible to family. For me, family is everything. For me, if I got it, my family got it. For me, if I'm making it to the top, I'm bringing my family right along with me, whether if they were ready or not. What I've learned through my entire journey, and I'm not even talking about spiritual, I'm talking about through my entire journey of becoming this successful person. I understood that there's some people in my family that are just not ready or equipped to go on that success journey with me. But instead of me looking and hearing and paying attention to what these people are saying and the actions that they were doing, I was continuously putting what I think on these people, what I feel, and kept myself open for those toxic relationships. So that is why I say that no, first I need to check myself. First we need to check our own boundaries within ourselves. And what we would no longer subscribe to within ourselves. The one thing that I do love about doing this podcast, and honestly being my own boss as well, is that I'm able to take my time to do this podcast the way that I want to. Like I'm not doing it live, like it's pre-recorded. And it is giving me a moment in time to really live in a real time. So I'm going to be very honest on this. I literally had to stop recording this show. So what you're going to hear in the beginning is yesterday's show. And I had to stop in the middle of recording this show. And the reason why is because in the beginning of the show, I had an extremely bad migraine. And if you rate it from a 1 to 10, I was at a hard 8, almost to a 9. And I was literally sitting like, okay, you have to do this. You have to go ahead and do this because you promised them that every Tuesday there will be a new episode. And I literally was talking about boundaries. I was literally talking about setting boundaries for myself. And I was pushing through the boundaries of myself, meaning that I knew health-wise that I should not be continuing to do that podcast yesterday. I knew it. But I kept pushing myself to where, picture this, to where I'm sitting at my desk. My chair is back down, is pushed back away from the desk where the mic is at. And my head is on the mic. Literally holding my head up as I am talking to you all. But the ironic thing is that your topic today is about the setting the boundaries. But what started off as setting the boundaries for someone else, some other people in your lives, this is now turned into setting boundaries for yourself. And I did speak about it a little bit before, but I didn't know that it was setting me up to be able to speak in this way now. And that's when I tell you, when God be using you and working you in so many different ways, I'm telling you, he used me and worked me in so many ways. It is an amazing experience. It's not an easy experience, but it's an amazing experience. So now what turned out to be setting boundaries for my self-love towards someone else is setting boundaries for myself to understand better what self-love is. It's like you were, and I know a lot of you can understand this, is we work so hard. We work so hard. We pick up those extra hours to make sure that we are making enough money to be able to do X, Y, and Z, to pay the bills, to make sure our family is straight. And we tend to ignore our own well-being. We tend to ignore our own well-being. And it could be for many of different things. Many of different things. But that is where we have to start setting boundaries for ourselves. Last week I said, okay, look, if my neck starts to hurt as I'm typing, as I'm working, I'm going to take a 10-minute, 15-minute break. I'm going to go sit down, rest for a second, then come back. And if it takes me longer, then that's what I'm going to do. Because I know me. I know I will work myself into the ground to make sure a project is done. Period. Or make sure I'm doing what I've been told someone that I was going to do for them. And we have to start setting boundaries. We have to start setting boundaries for ourselves. And it's like, where do that boundary start? What does that come from? You know what it comes from, and I'm going to be very honest. Because I made myself believe that I have to push myself beyond the normal limits of boundaries to be successful. You understand? You know how they say it's the mindset. And I know this is about to mess you up because I'm always talking about mindset. But even with that mindset that you have to push forward, to keep going, you still need to know what your limit is. And meaning physically, emotionally, mentally, and not overextend yourself to be this perfect person, to be this successful person, to be this all to everyone, but not being that all to yourself. It's like ignoring what my body is telling me and understanding that it's time to rest. Why do we do that? Is that a sense of looking for validation from others? Is that a sense of not letting anyone else down? What is that? And the funny thing is, I know when I am talking to you all right here, I am not the only one. I am not the only one. But as I said before, we have to start listening to our bodies and know not to overextend our boundaries with ourselves. You know, a lot of times we put extreme expectations on ourselves because we believe that that's the only way that we can become successful, is to work extremely hard. I used to believe that saying, that since I was a double minority, that I have to work twice as hard as anyone else. You know, being a woman and a black woman at that I had to work twice as hard as anybody else to be successful or to be, validated, or to know what my worth is. I have to constantly prove what my worth is. But that has really been an up and down emotions with that whole entire theory. The amazing thing is that just a few days ago, I just finished writing an ebook that I will be releasing next week. And it's called Unlock the Door to Success, A Journey of Healing and Overcoming. And in that book, I talk briefly about boundaries. The funny thing is that I intended to talk, like I said, about this, about setting boundaries for others. And this show has taught me something in real time about setting the boundaries within myself. And you ask, Nyomi, what does that look like? Well, let me start off to saying that it's to explain what boundaries are. Okay? So boundaries, they help determine what is and is not okay in a relationship. Whether it be with friends, partners, co-workers, bosses, family members. Ideally, we put them in a place to protect our well-being, and they help us to build trust, safety, respect in a relationship. Now we're gonna go a little deeper. We're gonna kind of twist that around a little bit, and we're gonna make this about ourselves. So the very things that I said here about boundaries help determine what it is and not okay with the relationship with yourself. And it's like, Nyomi, what does that look like? If something feels uncomfortable for you, or you feel your body is not acting the way that it needs to act while you are doing something or while you are speaking, then you need to stop that. Let's start using the boundaries for ourselves to validate ourselves. Because usually when we go beyond those boundaries with ourselves, that's because we're doing what? We're looking for that validation from others. We're looking for someone to tell us what our worth is. And is it wrong to have to want validation or to want to know that you are worthy from somebody else? No, it's not. But when it comes to where that is all that you can feed off of, is that's what's fueling your movement in life, then yes, it is. Then yes, it is. And you know when it says, ideally, we put it in place to protect our well-being. Why can't we do that with ourselves? This is where we have to stop looking outside about who we need to put boundaries on outside and check ourselves within ourselves. Because remember, the way we show up is how we show people on how to treat us. When we don't have boundaries for ourselves, that allows others to not have boundaries for us. Remember when I said earlier in the show, is that I made myself accessible to my family. So I had the door wide open for those toxic relationships to come in. And you know why? Because I didn't know how to set the boundaries for myself. If you listen to last week's show, I was always trying to prove that I'm better than what they can ever think that I was or was going to be. And so then I didn't have any boundaries. I would just work. Travel. No matter what my body felt, no matter what uncomfortable situation that I felt that I might be in, but I pushed those limits. And you know, the funny thing is that when you working out and you with the trainer, they push you past those limits because, as I said before about the mindset thing. But and this is where we have to learn how to use our mindset wisely. This is where we have to have empathy and compassion for ourselves and not push ourselves and not be so hard on ourselves. When I was doing the research for this show, I learned that there are seven types of personal boundaries. And it's even on how you enforce them. And so I had wanted to try something different. I wanted to use the 7 boundaries, but I wanted to go a little deeper and use them as, and when I say this, I'm going on the top of my head right now. I am literally going on the top of my head right now. And with these 7 boundaries, I want to use them to where we're talking specifically to ourselves. And I'm going to tell you what the 7 boundaries are first, all right? It's the physical boundaries, the property boundaries, the sexual boundaries, the emotional boundaries, the intellectual boundaries, the spiritual boundaries, and the time boundaries. Those are the 7 boundaries. So what I want to do right now, I want to take a quick break. And then I want to come back and then I want to break it down to how we can set these 7 boundaries within ourselves. All right. It's your girl, the goddess Nyomi Banks here on the season of self-love. And we will be right back. Hey there, my sexy people. Are you ready for an exciting new series on Ask Naomi Bridging the Gap podcast? Well, introducing Ask Naomi Mondays, Ask Naomi Letters, where I read heartfelt letters filled with love, sex, and relationship advice every Monday. If you're facing a relationship dilemma, longing for guidance, and simply curious about others' experience, this is for you. Just shoot us an email at asknaomi@gmail.com to be a part of the conversation. Join us as we bridge the gap between curiosity and clarity, uncertainty and confidence. But get ready to explore the beautiful complexities of love and relationships. So listen to Ask Naomi Mondays, Ask Naomi Letters, and let's dive into these thought-provoking letters together. Don't miss a single episode. Hey, well, welcome back to the season of self-love, and I am your host, Nyomi Banks. And we will be continuing the discussion on our topic today, what is entitled Empowering Boundaries, the Key to Self-Love and Saying No. In the beginning, earlier we were talking about the boundaries, and if you're just joining us right now, we're not talking about having boundaries with others, but creating those boundaries within yourself. Because once you're able to create those boundaries within yourself, then you can know how to show that to others. Before the break, I talked about the 7 personal boundaries that we need to learn. During my research, as I said before, when I first thought of the topic of doing this topic, it was more of having boundaries with someone else. But in real time, literally there was an experience in a situation that happened between yesterday and today that I truly had to speak about having boundaries with yourself. Understanding what that boundary is of yourself and teaching yourself the importance of it for your self-love. And as you know, the season of self-love is more about building that intimate relationship with yourself. So until we are able to, again, set those boundaries for ourselves, for things that we do to ourselves, then we cannot be able to set successful boundaries with others. If that make any sense. If you understand me. Okay, now we're going to talk about the 7 boundaries that I read up on, but I wanted to do it a little different. I wanted to kind of make it in for self. Okay, now I hope you're following me here with self. So let's start off with the physical boundaries with that one. And this is what they say. These are the boundaries pertaining to touch, when, where, how, who, and maybe you are not comfortable hugging in public or standing too close to strangers. All right, so let's go on to the personal level on physical. And physical can be any aspect of meaning of your comfortability with being around someone, or even your comfortability in being in your own skin. So you're saying, what does that look like, Nyomi? Now, y'all going to hear me say that a lot throughout this whole series. What does that look like, Nyomi? What that looks like for me is when I look in the mirror, that I am comfortable of who I am. Meaning that I'm comfortable with my body, I'm comfortable with my complexion, I'm comfortable with my eyes, my lips. I'm comfortable with me, my weight. I'm comfortable with all of that allow me to be around people. Okay, that's one. All right, but then also is that when looking at your personal body and understanding and embracing all of that is, once again, not comparing yourself to others and not looking for validation of others on how you feel or you look physically. Okay, that's one. All right, now we're going to go to two. Two is putting yourself in places and spaces that you know that you're not comfortable with, whether it be an event, whether it be a family's home or old friend's home or something in that situation, knowing that physically and mentally you're not aligned with that anymore, and you want to push your boundaries or say, oh, I can handle it, or I can do that. No, do not push yourself into those spaces in those different spaces, because now you are going beyond the boundary of your personal comfortableness, if that makes sense. And let's not forget the most important thing is allowing someone to give you a hug, shake hands, or whatever when you don't feel comfortable with that person's energy or space, or you just don't like that person. Sometimes, as you meet strangers and you have some people that are huggers, I'm going to be honest. I am a hugger. I am a hugger, and I might go beyond my boundaries. Shame on me. And I need to be more aware of that when approaching someone. And if they give me a sign like no, or either touching, shaking hands, those are certain boundaries that we should know not to do. But then we were taught to, those are things that are comforting. For me, is that I know is that if I am not comfortable with a person or situation in greeting or whatever, I'm not going to hug that person. You understand what I'm saying? And so I hope this is coming across to you an understanding with the physical boundaries mean in that aspect. All right, 2, property boundaries. Okay, I'm gonna read this to you. There are boundaries pertaining to things we own, things we lay claim to. And maybe you don't like it when others simply touch your things without your consent. Okay, so I have a prime example of this. For some reason, my mother thinks that whatever she's purchased is only one of a kind. Mind you, she walked into the store and she's seen probably 50 or 60 of her product that she has purchased in the same exact color. But for some reason, she feels that if it's in a space that she's in, whether it's your house, your room, whatever, and it looks like hers, then she said, oh, that's mine. And it's like, no, boo, no, this is mine. Even you open it up and you show her the writings in it, and she would say, well, no, did you take my thing? Like, no, this is mine. Like, I purchased this on this date. And so for her boundaries is whatever that looks like it's hers, then it's hers. No, that ain't right. And when I laugh about it, because we just had this situation literally the other day. So for me, it's my reaction to it. I understand this is her, and this has been her all of my 51 years of living and understanding. So now my reaction to her is, okay, mama. All right, so you probably bought that from Walmart or Target or whatever. So you wasn't the only one with that color, right? So I have to remind her and tell her that, look, they probably have made, about 100,000 of these around the world. And just because we're in the same household or we're somewhere else, that doesn't mean that you put claims on this. Now, if you saw me go into your room and take it, then that's a whole nother thing. Now, also, when using the personal property boundaries. So remember we're talking about having with ourselves, right? And remember early in the episode, I spoke about me being accessible to my family, And when you continue to be accessible to people, that allows people to feel that whatever is yours is theirs as well. And that's why you have to understand and put claim on what is yours. And when I say this, I am so real. In my career, I have opened and allowed an opportunity for whoever family member that I wanted to be able to bring them with me, meaning that whatever opportunity that I had, that I opened that door opportunity for them as well. Not understanding, as I mentioned before, that sometimes they are not equipped for that opportunity, or were not ready at that moment for that opportunity, or just wasn't supposed to be in that opportunity. That I myself mishandled that opportunity for myself and brought other people into that opportunity with me. That was part of my property. And I might come back to this a little later to speak more in detail about that. But that is what that property boundaries is meaning as well. All right, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so the next one is sexual boundaries. And it reads, this includes both the physical and emotional aspects of sex. There are the acceptable language, ideas, and information around sexuality. So, have you heard of sexual jokes? That's either offensive or made you very uncomfortable. So let me give you an example. Like for me, I used to work at Bridgestone Firestone. And I used to work in where the truckers were at. So I was more of a dispatch and billing. And so I will come in connection with different, truck drivers and stuff like that. And some of the language could be very vulgar to others. I used to live and be very proud that I can go toe for toe with the language that they had. I didn't get offensive by it. Me personally, I didn't. Have there ever been a time that I did feel uncomfortable with speaking about certain things, especially when it came to sex? Yes, I did. I think for me, I've learned to not put myself in those uncomfortable situations. Yeah, this one right here, I can say that it's self-explanatory, but don't allow anyone to put you in an uncomfortable situation or place because they might hold higher rank than you in a job or promotion, or they are at the ability of have power over you. Know what that is. Understand what that is, and knowing that if that's what has to be done, then that's not for you. That's not for you. Know that. Not allow you to go through your personal boundaries with others. Now let's go with self. And and like I said before, this is strictly going off the top of my head. So as I'm sitting here and I'm reading this now, and I'm saying, for me, when going to a personal boundaries with myself, with sexual boundaries with self, it's not being forced through peer pressure or what you feel others will be doing at this time. You have to do what your comfortability is for you. I know I speak and I talk about sexual wellness, sexual attitude, being knowledgeable in your sexual being, and I'm all for that. You have to find a time to when you yourself can learn about who you are sexually. Not what anybody else tell you, but what you feel. And it's good to go and find out what your boundaries are with yourself. Meaning, you can look online and find those different spaces or places that'll help you, or you can go to a professional where they can help you to get through whatever sexual urges or sexual feelings or uncomfortableness that you have. But do not put yourself in situations that are uncommon to you that will make you feel uncomfortable. And that has to do with relationships too. One of the things that I say is that I think that one of the first conversations should be, when you're getting in a relationship, should be sex. Are we in common with that, or our beliefs of what sex is? So my thing is, for this one, for your sexual boundaries, is know what your sex level is. Know who you are sexually. Know that first. All right, let's go to the next one. Emotional, relational boundaries. This involves boundaries pertaining to what we want to feel or others want to feel, as well as respecting our own personhood and others. This is how we treat and how we allow others to treat our emotions, respecting that we each have our own emotional experiences. And at the same time, it's about not taking responsibility for other people's emotion. All right, so this one, wow. This is something that throughout me growing up, I've learned how to think about what others are going through. This is when now I think about using the 4 agreements. And if you heard me from my shows over there, Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast, or if you heard from the previous shows from right here on the Season of Self-Love, you know that one book, the 4 agreements, it will put it all there. It truly would. And this is something that I use generally. It was something that my mom used to always say to me. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And I remember growing up, I used to treat people the way that I wanted to be treated. And honestly, I still do. But I also realize is that everyone doesn't go by that rule. They don't. And also what I do is I remember is that everyone is not me. Everyone is not me. And so I'm very aware on how I want to treat people, and I continue to do that. I treat people the way I want to be treated. If I know I want to feel a certain way when speaking to someone, whether we're in an argument or in a conversation or whatever, I want them to feel as I feel, happy. And if I'm upset or angry, I'm going to explain to them what it is and why. And then my question always to them, do you understand what I'm saying? Did you hear what I'm saying? And if you did, could you please tell me, what did you hear me say? And that's speaking with others. Now let's go with yourself. We have to learn how to have compassion and empathy for ourselves. Sometimes we do things that we know we're not supposed to be doing, or we just didn't get it right that time. So instead of keeping ourselves down and keeping our foot on our own necks, how about showing some grace for ourselves? That same grace and compassion that you would show for others because you're looking for validation. How about use that same grace and compassion for yourself? Because remember, we are not perfect. And actually 4 and 5 kind of goes into the same thing, and I'm going to tell you how. Number 5 is intellectual boundaries. This is the pertaining of our thoughts, our intellectual beliefs, ideas, and how they are respected. Maybe you berated someone for a different opinion, or left as someone tried to shove their thoughts on you. Okay. So this go in tune with the 4 agreements once again. When a lot of people speak from their individual experiences. When I created Actionable Bridging the Gap podcast, that was to bring different people from different aspects of the world, from different lifestyles, to come together to bridge the gap between them all so they can understand each other's language. We can understand it. We might not agree with it, but we can understand each other. I can understand why you move like this. You understand why I move like this. And respectfully, we all, okay, that's how you move. Fine. But I can respect you on that as well as I can respect myself. And also what it does for me is that even listening to someone, it will give me, well, there's a different perspective. Everything doesn't have to always be my perspective. As the same as that. And again, when we go to talking about self, allow your mind to open up to a different perspective. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that there's another thought pattern to it. There's another perspective coming from where they lived or where they were raised. Does that make sense? All right, number 6 is spiritual boundaries. This is about our spiritual belief system, how we practice them, and what we choose to share around these beliefs. You know, for me, I've had a religion aspect of this, and I've had the spiritual aspect of this. And I'm going to be very honest. Through my whole life, I've always been a spiritual person. Never quite knowing exactly what that was, but I knew that I was more spiritual than religion. I just was. And for me, for boundaries of those is that we all have God within us. And God gives us certain gifts and things to know when something doesn't feel right. So if that gut feeling, that intuition, if something don't feel right in going through this spiritual growth, then maybe it's time to stop and take your time to sit with God and pray about that. That's when you know when you're about, you pray and then you meditate. And let me tell you why prayer and meditation has to go hand in hand. Because as you praying and you speaking and you talking to God, now you need to sit and listen to what is being said. What is the message for you? Knowing your boundaries is knowing that I need to take that time out daily for me to do. And number 7 is time boundaries. This is pertaining to how you spend your time in different areas of your life. For me, I'm very guilty of this. As you heard, I will work, and not put a boundary on that time that I'm working. Or I would take a whole 2 or 3, 4 days and just be laid out just watching TV. And you understand what I'm saying? It's like making those schedules for yourself to give yourself time to do some self-love healing, some self-love practicing. To not force yourself to do whatever. And what I mean do whatever, like me, I had to go back into the beginning of this. Like my head was hurting. I had a migraine that was like an 8-9 in the pain level. With my head all on the mic, talking to you all. And it's like, how long you been doing this? Because you went from writing a book to doing some other project, all in the mass of the same day. Like I'm in the process of writing another book right now. So instead of me taking time right there to just celebrate that one right there and then move on, no. So make sure you set time out for yourself. And let me do a plug here. I have a 30-day practicing self-love. And if this is your first time listening here, you could go onto my YouTube, Nyomi's World. And it's right there. It says 30 days to practicing self-love. And you can start it any day that you want to. Starting from day 1 to 30. And the thing is you can do it over and over and over and over again. Start implementing those things into your life. And that goes for me too. That goes for myself too. So, for setting these boundaries, and I know it seemed like it was a little bit all over the place, but it really not. It really wasn't. What started off to be something, God came in and just moved it around. Because evidently this is what needed to be said. We need to learn what our own boundaries is before we can set boundaries on others. And that's where that self-love comes in. That's what that practicing self-love is. That's within it, getting to know who you are. Finding out who that little girl or that little boy is. Find out what part of their life that they need healing so they can show up as their best self. Hi, Naomi. I thank you for joining me this week. And my prayer is that you come back next week. Please share this podcast with any loved ones or any friends that you think that might need it. just need to listen to this series right here. And I thank you all. Remember, follow us at Ask Nyomi, as well as Elevate Me Self-Discovery, which is my transitional life page. There is that if you feel like anytime that you're stuck and you just needed to get unstuck, I got you. All right, well, that was another beautiful episode, and I thank you for listening to me and trusting me with these words of encouragement and inspiration, and just going on this journey with me. Truly just going on this journey with me. As I always say, be good to one another and yourselves, and always keeping sexy. Sending light, love, and prayers to you always. Thank you. Have you ever felt like you're standing at the door to success, key in the hand, but something's holding you back? Well, you're not alone. My new ebook, Unlocking Your Door to Success, is your guide to healing and overcoming those internal struggles. If you want to learn more and step into your success, go to stand.store/elevate-me self-discovery. Get your free ebook for a limited time.